Here it is. And only 6 players can win the first crown of Season 3 of the EPT. And we are where we started, with Bjorn Erik Glen out in front with well over 1 million chips, as is Phil Ivey, who's been quite quiet so far, right down to David Dineshkar with about 250,000. And really it's interesting early on. Some players will play a bit more loose. You know, the big blinds are up to 20,000, Greg, so even with a stack of 250,000, 500,000, you probably will want to get busy, and you want to get busy soon.
Well, I mean, my rule of thumb, if I have less than 10 times the big blind, I'm either going to go all in or fold each hand. And with 250,000 chips, you barely have more than that minimum amount. So, I mean, he's only got a 2-move stack. He can make the first raise and he can make the second raise or bet, and that's it. He's got no other room to maneuver. And therefore, even our players with more chips, because they're against these other players with shorter stacks, they also become 1 or 2 move hands.
Well, that's just been proven right now with Lissandro nearly 1 million chips in front of him, and he's made a 40,000 raise with the Queen 8 suited. A hand he may have laid down on another day.
Well, he knows he can push people around. I mean, the other big stacks don't want to get involved without having the likely best hand, because they don't want to get themselves crippled to him. And the short stacks, you know, they know they're risking their tournament life if they mess with him. So when you're a chip leader or one of the chip leaders, that's green light to go at all times at this point in the tournament.
Well, we're three-handed here. Ivey's went in with the threes. Gregory is ace-10, and he's hit top pair. Ivey won't like that.
Now, Phil may be thinking he has the best hand here. I mean, he doesn't really count the 5 as an overcard because no one's likely to be playing it. So he's thinking there's only one overcard out there, really, that's likely to beat my pocket threes.
Well, the Englishman's hit that one overcard.
Well, Phil's going to have to get very lucky here. You know, with any luck, though, he's going to get raised, and he's not going to be able to make the call, because otherwise he's going to lose more chips.
Well, Gregory's decided this is the time he's going to make his bid to win this. He's not here to pick up 4th, 5th and 6th place. If he's going to do anything, he's going to win the trophy. And he goes all in, over 500,000 chips.
Yeah, I mean, Phil, you know, was right to think that he could have the best hand on that flop, and it certainly was worth taking a stab at it. But he knows he's beat there. He knows he can't call that raise. He's got 2 outs.
And talking of 2 outs, we've already lost 2 players. Robin Keston's now watching this final table, and he's with Natalie.
Robin Keston from West London went out in 8th place, the first man off the final table. I know you're disappointed. Talk us through it, because you went out at the same time, but he had more chips than you, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he moved in with sort of a slightly bigger stack than I had. Then the guy on the button has just called, and I sort of wanted to triple up, and I was putting them hopefully on ace queen, ace jack sort of hands, and thought I was a chance to get some chips. Sitting there with a tiny stack, it was just it was never going to work. There were monsters, millions and millions of chips on there, and I wasn't here to get the difference between 7th and 8th place prize money. So it was just a question of finding a spot. That was the best hand I've seen for an hour and a half. So.
And so you went into it with a fairly kind of relaxed attitude, you given that you were short stacked?
Yeah, well, I was waiting for a hand to stick my chips in with. I found the hand, and it didn't look too good against the ace-9 and the pair of queens. I had 1 out.
Presumably, because it's on your doorstep, we'll see you in London.
Definitely, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, you've got a flight to catch, so you better hop along.
All right, then, thanks
good to see you. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Well, Keston leaves in 8th, John Dull in 7th. They both went down in the same hand to Bjorn Erik Glen, and he fairly much explained exactly why he thought he'd throw his chips in. He was going for the bigger gamble, looking to triple up. He wasn't here for 8th or 7th, Greg, and you got to admire that attitude. Well, an early race from Lissandro here with the suited connectors. He's not going to let anyone limp in. He's applied the tax.
Why did Robin's plane already be... He already had his plane scheduled. I don't get that. It's like he knew he wasn't going to go any further.
Taxi outside. Waiting time, maybe that's what it was. He didn't want to pay the waiting time.
Well, I guess maybe if he had finished higher up on the list, he would have been happy to pay the change fee on his flight.
He'd be gutted if he went outside and the taxi's waiting time was €69,100. Leaves with absolutely nothing. Well, there, Dineshkar's got pocket 10s, and of course that's bad news for Lissandro, but then again, he doesn't need to get involved in his hand. Let's see.
Well, as you can see, with only 1 overcard, because he's got the suited connectors, Lissandro's not that big of a dog, only 6-4 right now.
Well, as the flop falls down, that makes Lissandro the flush draw. 1 spade, and he's there.
He's got 9 spades to win with. He's got 3 queens. He's got 3 jacks. He's got 15 cards in the deck. He's become the favorite. Yeah, I don't like the way Dineshkar played that hand. I mean, he just called with pocket tens. Even though Lissandro has not been playing loose or anything like that, I still think I'm going to re-raise there with pocket tens. Make sure I get rid of the blinds. You know, play this hand heads up in position.
Even if nothing else, just to get a bit of information.
You do always help to find the other player's hand. The more chips you put in the pot, the fewer hands they can hold if they're willing to continue with you.
Yeah. And therefore, you get a... I think a lot of people think, you know, we're coming to poker or don't play poker that much. The way you read players' cards is through some form of telepathy, you know. Sometimes they can do something to give it away or say something, but a lot of the time you get your information through the way they bet, the hand in front of them.
Well, exactly. I mean, we call that betting patterns, and that's one of the tells you can use online. Someone's betting pattern alone will tell you a whole lot about exactly what cards they're holding. Now, you can go beyond that and you can look at the body language. You can look at the pulse in the neck, the way they're breathing, the look on their face, where their eyes are. You can use all those things to gauge whether they're strong or weak. But the betting pattern is by far the most reliable tell because you can't fake that. I mean, you made that bet or you didn't make that bet.
Well, some action here between two massive stacks. Ivy's got the pocket nines. Lissandro again, 10-9 suited. And that flops came down. And that's hugely dangerous for Lissandro. Because the Italians had 2 pairs. And Ivy's got trips. And Lissandro will have a lot of problems reading that. And he will have a lot of problems, Greg, putting this hand down.
I don't think he can possibly put this hand down. I mean, there's a flush draw. There's straight draws.
Ah!
Exactly. He wants to make sure that the flushes and the straights don't come. He was trying to charge Phil a price in case Phil has a hand like ace queen of diamonds, something like that. So he figures, hey, you know, I can't play this slow with all these draws out there. I got to push it now, and I know I have the best hand. It's just this time he was wrong. It was one of the few hands that was ahead of him.
Well, Jeffrey Lissandro has a look of disgust on his face, and at the moment he has nowhere to run. That's not going to help him whatsoever. He loses to the full house. And that means that the guy who came into the final with the 3rd biggest stack goes out in 6th place, losing almost 1 million chips in one hand. And more significant for this table is he's given those chips to one Philip Ivey.
He played the hand perfect. He just got cold decked. Nothing wrong there by Jeff.
Well, he leaves with a lot of money, but he would have imagined it was going to be a lot more.
Superstar Jeff Lissandro is a very disappointed man indeed. He goes out in 6th place. Jeff, talk me through those last few stages.
Well, it's the last hand. Phil raised on the button. He could have had any hand. I had 9-10 suited, which was quite a reasonable hand, so I called his raise. And the man just flopped a freak flop. The flop came 10-9 and another small card, and he had a set of 9. I mean, the guy had 2 9s. The last 9 hit the board. I mean, the guy's just incredibly lucky. It was just like a fixed hand. No one else could play it any different. I mean, I had a really big hand. I had top 2 pair against a guy stealing on the button. And you know, there he goes. He's got a set. He's got 3 9s. I mean, he's so lucky.
Philip Ivey, so lucky. I think that's what he's got coming up for his gravestone in many, many years to come from now.
Well, that's what they always say about the best players, is how lucky they are.
If Phil Ivey's lucky, he's very lucky indeed. Luck must be. Maybe he found a lamp when he was young and rubbed it and got 3 wishes.
Well, Chris Ferguson had a great quote one time. He said, take me to a poker room and have everyone in the room point me to the luckiest guy in the room, and I'll also show you the best guy in the room.
Yeah. Well, listen, Lissandro certainly isn't that man. Almost 1 million chips lost. He hits 2 pairs in the flop and he goes out to Ivey's trips. Ivey now can hardly see over his stack. He's in such a strong position at this final table. But we won't count our chickens before they hatch.
Yeah, everything's really going Phil's way here. The only negative in Phil's life right now in this tournament is the fact that the 2nd biggest stack is on his immediate left. So he does not have position on the guy who can hurt him the most right now.
Okay. Bjorn Eric Glenn.
Exactly. Glenn is a little bit of a wild card. He plays some hands in very unusual ways. He's hard to read. He's hard to predict. He's going to be tough for Gregory here. I mean, he just called with Queen 8 suited, which is a very marginal call, and it turns out that he has David Gregory dominated.
But it may be he who bets first wins this hand. I mean, it's a flop that nobody's hit. It's going to be hard to call it with a couple of overcards, especially not a Queen 8. And that's a really nice bet from Gregory, and that could very much be enough to take these chips. In fact, you'd bet your house on it.
Well, it's a standard continuation bet, and I promise you, Bjorn looks like he's thinking of a call or a raise. And whichever play he makes, he thinks he's bluffing. He doesn't know he has the dominant hand here. He thinks he's behind. He's hoping Gregory, though, has something like ace-jack or ace-king, and that he'll fold to this bet.
If he's bluffing, though, why does he just call it?
He called on the flop to set up the bluff on the turn.
Right, okay.
But it looks like that's going to fail. I can't imagine him calling the all-in here, even with the flush draw on the overcards.
Well,
that's going to be very marginal.
It's an open-ended straight draw for Gregory, but both players think that they're chancing their arm here. Glenn's way ahead, but he can't call because he hasn't actually hit anything. It's just Gregory's hit even less.
Wow, I mean, I really don't like this call. I mean, he does not have the price if he thinks he needs to make a flush to win here. And I can't imagine that he thinks he's got any chance of being in the lead. So he's trying to decide, do I want to call, you know, over 400,000 chips to make my flush with one card to come? And maybe a queen is good too. Maybe I give myself credit for being able to win with a queen, or maybe even an 8.
I don't think he can. And I mean, let me take you back to when he packed his suitcase and left his house in Norway. He made that journey to Spain. He set up in his hotel. He can't possibly call it. He has folded. He didn't put all that work in, 3-4 days, to throw it away in that. And we're learning a lot about David Gregory. Early on, he told Phil Ivey, don't push me about, and he's just done the same to Bjorn-Erik Glenn.
There's always a lot of value to aggression in a poker tournament, and Gregory is showing us that he has that level of aggression.
I've actually been playing poker for about 30 years. I used to have a card club in Southend, Speed, and we used to play 7-card stud. I've been playing Texas Hold'em for the last 3 or 4 years. Gambled all my life. I used to sit on my dad's shoulders when I was a baby, and watch him play cards at home. Willie Tan gave me a few hints, like he put me right on a few things, and it's all come together. So I feel I can play with anybody. You know, I mean, I don't fear nobody. I really don't.
Tell us something we didn't already know.
There's no reason to fear any poker player. I mean, this is just a game of poker. It's not like they're going to come over the table with a knife and gut you. But you still, need to be cautious around the top players. You know, you got to be careful making your moves because that's what they're good at. They smell the move and they make the right counter move to take the chips away.
For example, do you know why I would fear Phil Ivey? Because
you're a wimp?
Well, but that and the fact that his glasses cost more than my house. I would respect that. Diamonds encrusted the whole way across, all sorts. Whereas this guy's just wearing Elvis glasses that he got in a.
You know, I thought bridges cost millions and millions of pounds. Didn't you live under a bridge?
Yeah, but technically not my eyes. It's just a cardboard box I can take credit for.
Okay.
Well, we've had a raise from Bjorn-Erik Glenn. John Glenn. John Glenn was the first man in space, wasn't he?
I don't think they're related.
Well, Bjorn-Erik Glenn will be over the moon if he can win this one, and he's in a very strong position. He's our chip leader. He's been re-raised by Joachim Geigert from Sweden. So it's a Scandinavian battle. I've had many of those. My other half's Danish.
Well, raising, first in is one of the chips.